guys, welcome to a super special edition of the Wrap, episode 34, correct?
Yeah, this is a weird version.
Yes,
right?
Weird version.
You look very digital today.
Very digital. It's because I've been quarantined this week, and so we had to find a different way to do this, but we are going to press on. And
Thank
because
you
of
to
Levi's
technology, right?
Yeah, well, thanks to Levi's technological genius, we are going to try to make this episode happen. We have no idea if I'll freeze in the middle of it. We have no idea if I will, my lips will be moving with a video. We're not really sure what's going to happen here today. True that. But you know what we do have, Levi?
What's that?
We have festive stockings in
the
background.
I love the festivities behind you. That's
maybe
nice.
You know what you should do, Levi?
Yeah.
Is you chained a background up this week, and you could hang some stockings behind you too as well.
Oh, just right here. Yeah.
Oh, you know what? Use our usual background. Just put some stockings in it.
Yeah.
And some Christmas lights. And some Christmas lights.
Our wrap studio. Yeah.
I like it. All right.
I will decorate today.
Awesome. Well, enough of the talking about just random stuff, and let's get into the topic of the day.
Yeah.
All right. Grit. So we are talking today about a 4-letter word starting with a G. It's called grit. And what do you think of when I say the word grit?
Well, my first thought is the grits that you get at Cracker Barrel. But I know that's not what you're talking about. So
that's not what I'm talking about at all. No.
And then I think about that, that toilet paper that's the really, really, really cheap stuff that's really hard and feels like sandpaper. I feel like that defines grit right there.
That's fun. That's funny. I had asked my Bible study group this past Sunday morning what they thought of when I said grit, and one of the people in there said sandpaper. That's what they said.
Yeah.
So we're still not talking about that either.
No.
So you want to take a third crack at this, and what you think of when you think of grit?
I think of determination and sticking with something and really digging your heels in and doing something.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's exactly what we talked about this last Sunday, was that concept and that idea of determination, perseverance, what I call stick-to-itiveness. That's what we talked about. Now, here's the problem sometimes, though, I think, and it's probably a little weird for people to hear this, because we don't often think of grit when we think of our faith. And why do you think that is, that we don't often connect grit with our faith?
I think it's because we sometimes are kind of lukewarm in our faith.
Okay.
I feel like faith kind of has that soft feel. Right?
Okay. Yeah. Do you think as well too? I think this is probably the biggest problem that people have with attaching our Christian faith with something like grit, is because grit to me often feels like working, earning something.
Yeah.
And we know that the gospel is directly opposed in a lot of ways to working for salvation or earning salvation. I mean, what's it say? Like, in Ephesians, it's a free gift. It's called grace. There's nothing that you can do to earn it, nothing you can do to boast about it. But it's a free gift.
Yeah.
And so I think that a lot of times that's what causes this block between, understanding that there is a grittiness to our faith that needs to be there, but us struggling with that because we say, well, it feels like I'm trying to work for something, or it feels like I'm trying to earn something.
So we kind of simplify it where, it's a free gift. We don't have to work so hard at it. Right.
Absolutely.
We kind of dumb it down in that way.
Yeah, exactly. But the thing about it is we don't often try to connect with, and I think it was, I was just had it in my sermon, I think it's Philippians chapter 2, where Paul talks about and says that we must work out so we don't work for our salvation, but we work out of our salvation. And so as you read the New Testament, there is no question in my mind, at least, and I really think that's what we're trying to kind of talk about here and propose to people, is that we don't, like, again, work for anything. We work from what God has already done for us, and that we do operate in our faith with a certain sort of grittiness. Now, if you'll remember, Levi, what were we talking about, or who were we talking about to kind of illustrate this idea of grittiness?
We were talking about the Magi.
The Magi. So tell a little bit about the Magi,
the wise men.
The wise men. Not three of them. Remember, there's not. We
don't know
probably.
Traditionally, we say there's three, but we really don't know. Yeah.
Don't really know. So tell the those watching, if you just kind of remember a little bit from the sermon, of what about these guys caused a grittiness in them.
You're lucky I went back and listened to the sermon, because I was in children's church this week. So, but no, you talked about you talked about how they had to travel quite a ways.
Yeah, do you remember how far they likely had to travel?
Likely 1,000, I think is what you said.
Yeah, somewhere probably over 1,000 miles. It was probably every bit of about a 9-month journey to get from where they were to Jerusalem. Yeah.
Yeah, that's insane. That takes a lot. And it's not like 1,000 miles via plane or 1,000 miles in a car. Like they were walking this.
Yeah. Via a paved road or anything.
Right.
Yeah. What could you imagine an over 1,000-mile journey in the desert could possibly go wrong that would test you in every possible way?
Oh, gosh. I'm just thinking you could have lack of supplies, you could have lack of food. Heat and exhaustion. Cold at night, because it is the desert, right? Like, so there's those swings in temperature.
Absolutely for that. And like I said, predators and sand upon sand upon sand. Who knows how many times they had to stop and dump sand out of everything that they were toting along with them.
Isn't that the truth? Like, anytime I'm like near sand, I have a shoe full of it. I don't know how it happens. I don't even have to walk through it. I just look at it.
Exactly. For sure. So these guys make this massive journey over 1,000 miles, months of their time. And what is it really that causes them to take off on this journey?
It's a star that they see.
A star, yeah. So we don't know much about the Magi, but the word that's used for them and traditionally what's believed about them is that they wore many different hats. So they were astronomers. They were interested in the stars. They were astrologers. They tried to interpret what the stars were telling them. They were politicians. They had a religious function. And so this is a very interesting thing to me so we have guys here who are naturally predisposed to look at and to see the stars and try to interpret things through the stars. And so I believe that's the way that God gets a hold of their attention.
Yeah.
And so through this, and again, there's a lot that goes into this and some speculation as to what this star really was. We don't know with any certainty at all. But there was something, I believe, scientific going on, and God was using their inclination towards the sciences, I believe, to reach them. And I think once he got their attention, he supernaturally kind of led them along the way to lead them to Jerusalem. And if you read in Matthew chapter 2, when it talks about the Magi, there's a sense, a clear sense that they didn't always have a star to guide them. It wasn't like there was one star in the sky that just kept kind of moving and kept kind of putting itself over where they needed to go. Like it appeared. And again, many people believe that it appeared 3 different times in the period of a year. And so they saw it one time when Jesus was born. They saw it again later on in the year. And then the third time they see this is when they're already in Jerusalem. They're talking to Herod. So that star appears for a third time. That's when they finally go to Bethlehem to see Jesus as a child.
Yeah.
And so,
and we know it took them a while, right? Because, Jesus was what, 2 years old by the time? Around
about that, probably somewhere between a year to 2 years, maybe a little bit more than 2 years old. So it took them quite a long time.
Wait a minute, you're telling me that my manger scene at home is incorrect?
I hate to be the bearer of bad news for anybody watching this, but if your manger scene includes shepherds and the Magi together, it's not
historically inaccurate.
It's not faithful. So think about this though, Levi. Have you, like, I'm sure that you've taken a long trip in your life, several hundred miles, maybe even thousands of miles. So you know that probably the hardest part of the trip is the last stretch of that trip, right?
Oh my gosh, yes. I can remember we used to live up in Minneapolis area, and we'd come down to Indiana to visit family. And on the way home, I'm telling you what, the state of Wisconsin has got to be the widest state I've ever traveled across. I mean, I know there's wider. Don't get me wrong. I didn't completely fail that subject in school, but it was that long stretch of nothing, like just nothing. That just, man, it's the longest.
Yeah.
Longest.
If you've never tried it though, try Kansas and try Nebraska and see if that's probably worse.
Yeah, because at least in Wisconsin you had the rolling hills. It was really pretty. But yeah, I can only imagine just flat nothing. Yeah.
Kansas and Nebraska, nothingness. But anyway, I always find for me that the hardest part of a trip is the last few miles of it, because you know that you're almost home, you're almost to your destination, you're almost to where you're trying to get to, and it just seems like it takes so long.
Yeah.
And so the reason I was kind of talking about that is if you imagine these wise men, these magi, they get to Jerusalem, and what do? They say, "Where's this newborn king of the Jews?" And what's the answer that they get?
Kind of I'm not sure what you're talking about there, you know?
Well, so the answer largely is we have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah. They're probably with strange looks, like, say it again.
Yeah. So that's how that's how not really out of touch, but just apathetic the religious leaders were. Right. They were about 5 to 7 miles away from Bethlehem. These guys had traveled over 1,000 miles. They get there, they feel like they've met their destination, they've met their goal.
Yeah.
They're here, they're going to find the newborn king of the Jews, and they ask about him, and everybody goes, we have no idea what you're talking about. Yeah. Can you imagine a more helpless? Yeah. Could you imagine a more helpless feeling?
Yeah. That'd be crazy. That'd be like getting to your destination and seeing no signs of where you're going to go.
Yeah.
And the locals be like, "What'd you come here for?" You know?
Yeah, exactly. So that's what I was saying, you know, is this is kind of the part of the trip that for us, or if those who are watching have taken like 100 or several hundred or 1,000-mile journey, and you're just almost to the end, and it just feels like it doesn't end. And so these guys are like, nobody knows what we're talking about. We've taken this whole trip for, it seems like, no reason at all. It's pointless, you know, but they don't stop. They just keep going. They have a grittiness to them. They have a perseverance to them. They're enduring, and they're like, we're stopping at nothing, because what is their one goal that they have?
Just to worship and to give their gifts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We want to worship the newborn, We want to worship the newborn king of the Jews, give our gifts. That's our sole goal. It
would have been so easy for them to just say, well, that was a wasted trip, and turn back and go home, right? Like,
yeah, because for most of us in our life, when we like really push for something and we feel like we've gotten to the end and to the destination, and we still find out that there's more to go, what do most of us do?
We give up.
We give up.
Yeah.
We throw in the towel and we say that's it. And so the point of this really is, and everything we were talking about on Sunday, everything we're talking about right now, is that I think that I'm only saying this for myself, but I think that a lot of other Christians would agree with this, but by and large, we lack a grittiness in our faith. Yeah, we lack perseverance. We lack some endurance. We lack some toughness. And, you know, I think we were talking a little bit in our Bible study is that we live in such a culture that everything is kind of given to us pretty easily on a silver platter. We don't have to work for much. And because of that, when things get difficult, we just shut down.
We're very much an instantaneous society. Like, we want it microwaved, and we want it quick.
Yes. And guess what? Faith is not that.
Yeah.
Faith is a long journey. I always use this phrase. Eugene Peterson wrote a book years ago called A Long Obedience in the Same Direction.
Yeah.
And that's what I think of when I think of the Magi. That's what I think of when I think of our faith, and how it forms us, how it forms our character. And a big part of that really is our grittiness.
Yeah.
And so I think that I would just say it this way and kind of, bringing everything together is that there is no incompatibility between grittiness and faith. But the thing that I want to talk about, Levi, and hopefully you kind of remember this as well too, is there's another part of the equation, isn't there, between grittiness and faith? Do you remember what that is? It starts with a G as well.
Grace.
Man, it's all about grace, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right. I can't remember what it is. I think it's First Corinthians. It's somewhere in there. But Paul says basically, I've worked harder than anybody else. I've worked harder than any of the other apostles, but it's everything I am basically is as a result of what God has given to me, God's grace in my life. Right.
Yeah.
And so I think we need to hold the same thing in our life as well, as there has got to be a grittiness to our faith, but it has to include grace at the same time. We have to understand that we don't stand our own. We don't do anything our own. Nothing that we can do we would ever possibly be able to boast about. It's only because of what Christ has done for us and in us that allows us to have that grittiness and that toughness. Yeah, absolutely. And so I think that what we're not saying here, Levi, and just make sure everybody knows this, we're not saying try harder.
Yeah, that's good.
We're not saying that you need to pull yourself up by your own bootstraps.
Yeah.
Just give more.
We're actually going to be talking a bit about that this coming week, next week.
There you go. All right. Preview. All right. They're a good seg for next week. Yeah. We're not talking about any of that you have to earn anything, that you have to work hard to try to get anything from God, but we work out of and we work with effort and we strive and we strain because of what God has done for us through and in his grace towards us.
Nothing we can do can make us any more saved, right?
Nope.
It's that you're made right. Now prove it, right?
Yeah. So if we want to get really theological about this and use some theological terminology for this, this would be we do nothing to justify ourselves, but we work along with God's grace and his spirit to sanctify us.
Yeah. Sanctify is a big word.
Yeah, sanctify is a big word. All right. So there's really, to me, like, I probably, I'm going to say this and somebody will be like, there's more parts to it, but I just see that we're justified, we're sanctified, and at the end of all things, we're glorified. And so right now here on this earth, we're working to be sanctified, to be made more holy, to look more like Christ.
And that's a process, right? Like
that is a process.
That's nothing we can do overnight.
No, it's a very slow and sometimes very painful process. But one of the things that we talked about and brought up was
that's where the grit comes in, right? That's that grittiness to stay to the course. Even when
and that grit painful. And that grittiness, I'm convinced, only comes through something or things like adversity and trials and testing. That's what builds up patience and perseverance and grittiness in us for sure. Yeah. So
I think a lot of times we get so focused on the end goal that we forget that a lot of our teaching and all of our training from God comes in the journey. Right?
Absolutely.
It's not the end justifies. It's the journey that matters a whole lot with God.
Yeah. I would say it this way too, and I think I can't remember where I said it during the sermon or I said it in Bible study, was our character is formed in the small moments.
Piece by piece.
To prepare us for the major and big opportunities that God has for us. And really, I think so much of life is lived in the small moments to prepare us for large moments. And so, like I said, I think that comes, like I said, through God's grace. It builds grittiness in us at the same time. So, wow, that's a whole lot of stuff right there. There's a whole lot of there's a whole lot of theology in there. So, man, we threw a bunch of stuff in there today. Yeah. All right. Good deal. Well, anything else that you have, Levi?
No. Just hopefully next week we have the hologram built up so that we can have you standing here.
Yeah, we'll get the hologram working, dust it off a little bit, and get it all worked up.
The holofelts.
There you go. Well, hopefully I'll actually be live and in person in the studio again next week.
That's our hope.
That's the hope. So, well, guys, again, as always, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of The Wrap. And just as a little plug and a little promo, please make sure to tune in on Sunday morning at 10:30. Catch us on our Facebook page on Facebook Live, and you'll get to see Levi preaching this Sunday as he wraps up our Behold series.
Yeah, and we also have a special guest with us on Sunday. Well, not special. They're always here. You just don't always see them. Our kids are going to sing silent. Well, they're going to sign Silent Night for us. So it'll be really cool.
There you go.
Yeah.
Awesome. There you go. So plenty of great stuff happening on Sunday. But like I said, as always, we thank you so much for joining us on another episode of The Wrap. Until next time, we will see you then.
See you guys.